All right, so I did case study 2.1, Averill versus Luttrell. This is basically a story about a baseball fight. I was pretty interested reading into it because one thing, kind of like NASCAR, when you go to baseball games, if anybody throws high and tight at somebody, you're always kind of seeing what happens next. Um, the overview is you have your plaintiff, which is Lyle Luttrell, and the defendants in the case are the Chattanooga Baseball Club and Earl Averill Jr. It was on August 20th, 1955. Why is this whole entire case study happening? It's because Luttrell was suing the defendants for assault and battery charges committed by Averill Jr. and during a baseball game. So basically, this is what happened: is the sixth inning of a baseball game. It's kind of like minor league baseball. When Luttrell was up to bat, Averill was catching that night, and Jerry Lane was pitching. And during that at bat, he had thrown a number of pitches that were high and tight, up close to Luttrell when he was batting. So Luttrell was kind of fed up with it. He felt like he was kind of thrown at him, type of deal. Luttrell eventually ended up getting hit by Lane, which then he showed his frustration by throwing his bat towards the pitcher's mound. When that happened, Averill, the catcher, stood up and punched Luttrell in the back of the head in frustration. One of those things where he's kind of standing up for his pitcher, which ended up knocking Luttrell unconscious, fracturing his jaw, which then led to your typical benches clearing brawl. They said that for 30 minutes a fight was going on, which was pretty crazy. Luttrell was immediately hospitalized. The ambulance came, picked him up. Like I said, jaw was just destroyed. He was unconscious. So from that, naturally, he sued Luttrell or Averill and the Nashville Baseball Club. The court found that the plaintiff was awarded $5,000 from each defendant, to which the Nashville Baseball Club appealed due to the fact that they had no reason to believe that Averill's actions had anything to do with his employment with the club, and that it was like his own deal of um, why he went after Luttrell and punched him. 57 CJS states that it is not ordinarily within the scope of a servant's authority to commit as assault on a third person, and in the absence of a non-delegable duty, such as that imposed by the relationship of carrier and passenger or hotel and guest, if the assault committed by the servant was outside the scope of his employment and was made in a spirit of vindictiveness or to gratify personal animosity or to carry out an independent purpose of his own, the master is not liable unless the servant's conduct is ratified by the master. So, long story short, that's saying that the Nashville Baseball Club had nothing to do with the acts that Averill took on Luttrell. They said later on that they both were cool with each other. It's not like this was some long hated rivalry. Just during the split moment of him throwing the bat at his pitcher, he got mad, took matters in his own hands, and punched him. Therefore, the National Baseball Club appealed the finding and went on to find, like it said in 57 CJS, that they are not liable for Averill's actions. I thought this was pretty crazy because, of course, you would be mad that the guy knocked you unconscious and broke your jaw. I don't understand how the Nashville Baseball Club would be sued, although I know since he is under contract with them, you might think that, but it's unless, the baseball club said, hey, we want you to go after this guy, start a fight, you know, then you could find the way, to sue them. But other than that, they're not liable for something that they choose to do on their own. Although I'm sure somewhere he might be suspended in the baseball club. They might take actions into their own hands that way. I feel like you see baseball fights a lot of the time, once or twice a year, to where when those guys get into it themselves, the teams aren't held accountable for that because it's their own actions, it's their own choice. So I thought that was a pretty realistic case study where you see this stuff still to this day, even though this was back in 1955.